W8D2 and are your spring split champions!
Three rookies prove themselves worthy of the top four in the EU LCS.
A double kill from Perch! This guy is a madman! He can do it! Oh, Memento! You beautiful man!
Guess the Quadra gonna be a pizza for Kobe!
It's time to find out who will rise. This is the EU LCS. Welcome back to Berlin and week 8 of the EU LCS summer split. In this Ready Check, we'll break down some great Akali plays, get to know more about some title contenders, and take a look back at a spicy bet involving the fish show. But first, let me introduce my panel. I'm Eva Schock, supporter, here with Christy Ender Frierson.
There you go.
Laure Bully-Vallée for the first time. Let's just get it out of the way. Yes. There's a height difference.
Yeah, it's so obvious we might as well stay next to each other.
Yeah, I think, and we're leaning into it by putting guys
definitely.
next to each other.
I'm just happy we're going to get some fresh eyes on the ULCS. I'm tired of listening to Deficio and Vedius. Those guys say a bunch, but we got good opinions here.
I also believe this is the first time that the amount of women outnumbers the amount of men on an English LCS broadcast or a league broadcast. So yes, more of that in the future. Laure, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. Now we're going to put you in the hot seat immediately. You have been on the EU LCS for about a year now, but we haven't really put you on the spot. We don't know that much about you. So take a seat in the DX Racer hot seat, and we are just going to fire some quick fire questions at you, me and Ender. Are you ready? Est-ce que vous êtes prêt?
Je suis prête.
Okay, so first off, starting off easy, where are you from?
Well, if it's not too obvious, I'm from Paris.
Oh, from France. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Surprise to me, honestly.
Big one for me, too. Now, what is your favorite anime?
One Piece, I'd say. The best one.
Do you know
I do know One Piece.
Okay, I don't.
You're
I
still
hope you know
learning.
One
You'll
Piece.
get there.
I'm a novice. I'm a novice. Will KT win Worlds?
That's a harsh one. You don't have to do this. Of course they'll win World. They have to.
Laure is obsessed with KT, but
They're
they always
doomed
disappoint her.
They're
Yeah.
doomed now.
What is your favorite video game besides League of Legends?
I'd say The Legend of Zelda. I even made my latest tattoo for this game, so yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, that means you must like it a lot. Who is your favorite player to follow in the world?
In the world?
Yeah.
Mata.
Mata?
Yeah.
You want to jump in?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Now, let's see here. What is... Oh, who do you think is going to win the ULCS Summer Split?
I think Fnatic are in a good spot right now, so I'd go for Fnatic.
And who is your favorite team to watch in the EULCS?
Splice.
Splice? Why is that?
Well, their game are not that interesting, but I think... come on, they always aim for late game, so it's not that interesting, but I like Odoamne, I like the spirit around the players, so yeah, let's go.
Okay, now who's your favorite French player in the ULCS?
So we have 4, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a main AD carry, so I want to say Hansama.
Okay. What is the most fun part about interviewing pro players?
Well, it's their big moments, and I want to know what they feel after the game, so since I'm really passionate about the competition, I think that's what I'm here for.
Perfect. A couple of fun ones, maybe. Baguette or broodje?
Baguette.
Baguette, of course.
Come on.
Finally, what is your favorite Chips and Wa or French community cheer? You know, we had one about Pantheon, we had Sparta.
Spartiate, quelle est votre profession?
Is that the one they answer? Aou, aou, aou?
Yeah, it is. It's the most famous one.
Aou, aou, aou. All right, finally, who is your most improved player in the EULCS summer?
Well, I want to say Jizuke because he had a hard time at the beginning of the splits and he improved a lot and rolled with it, and his role changed in Vitality, so I gotta give props to Jizuke for that.
Awesome. I think that's good. We learned a lot about you. A Zelda tattoo, favorite anime, favorite team to watch. She's French?
Unbelievable. Who would have imagined?
Yeah, good stuff. You can come down from the chair. Or, I mean, maybe you just want to sit there for a while. That's also Thank you very much. Was that not too stressful? Sorry to put you in that position.
No, we were gentle. So.
It was all good. We're all friends here. Now, now that you're here, I would also like to pick your brain about the French Open Tour. There's, of course, the ERL competition over in France, and the 2 top teams qualify for EU Masters. What's the rest of the setup of the tournament?
Well, I'm happy because last year it was a bit messy, and this year it's way more rewarding for the team. So the way it's set, we have 7 tournaments over the year. 6 teams qualify to the playoff, and each tournament gives points. and that's how you put up the ranking. So once we hit playoffs, the two main teams will go to the EU Masters in the end.
What has historically been the performance of the French teams at the bigger tournaments? What are your expectations?
Well, we did great. The last time, I think, Gamers Origin lost in semifinals. They were burned a bit, and I think they had an explosive playstyle who didn't fit for such an intense stage, but I have high expectations for this one. We have Genside and Gamers Origin, who are one step ahead of every team in France. We also have Solary, which is a team made of influencers and streamers.
And they're doing well?
Yeah, and they still managed to get on top 6, so they improved, they changed their coaching staff to match their new expectations. So I'm really looking forward to see them climb.
It's the Stream Dream Team.
It is a
right.
Dream Team, and it's actually working. That's quite interesting. Also, we see Vitality Academy in there, but as I recollect, they haven't played actually in a while, so it's kind of up in the air who will be the strongest
team. Yeah, that's the issue. I think the last tournament was 2 months ago, so a lot changed until then, and even coaches, roster changes. So we might still have Gamers Origin and Genside on the top, but I don't know about the rest. Really.
Okay, well, the next stop will come up in Metz in September. And for more information and to watch the French Open or the Open Tour France, you can head over to www.lol-open-tour.com. No dashes, sorry. So, misinformation. Thank you very much for joining me, Laure. It was cool to know more about you. And I think you have an interview, so you have to run off. Alrighty. Thank you for joining us. And as you do, we are going to take a look at some spicy food that the fish show got served after an unfortunate, let's call it, bet on Euphoria. Let's see.
All right, so Fnatic versus the Misfits, match of the week. It's on Saturday, the last game of the day.
Yes, you guys on the side of Misfits, me and Yankos on the side of Fnatic. You will eat the hottest, spiciest
Not the
food
hottest.
we can find.
Just spicy. I mean, you were so sure about Misfits winning, right? I mean, come on, the hottest, spiciest food.
Hello everyone, this is my least favorite moment of all time. Wadine and myself on the Euphoria podcast, we predicted Misfits to beat Fnatic a couple of weeks ago. They got stomped, that means we have to eat spicy noodles. And then we'll talk about the Fnatic G2 game that just happened today here on Saturday. It was a great game.
That's really spicy as well.
Let's get into it.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, they have, I can see they have Yasuo and Sejuani, which is a really good combo, yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
What do you expect from that combo?
It's getting hotter, by the way. The first bite is really good.
Yeah.
And when you swallow it...
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, but when you swallow it... Oh, God. Talk to me about the Zaya ban, because to me...
We didn't give up Zaya.
Okay.
Get ball pressure. You know what?
Promise you.
Oh, that's really disgusting. By the way, if I finish this first, he get punishment, right? With his noodle challenge.
Oh, you got no finish. Oh my God.
And then...
Yeah, I'll take one more bite and then I'm... It's when you swallow this garbage, man. The first one's really good.
You look fine, by the way. We
Yeah, it is cheating.
fine. We should have got you. You're like, this is a horrible stereotype, but you look fine.
No.
He's trashed.
No, I mean, I'm also not fine.
Yeah,
I'm
you
burning
are.
inside.
No, you're not.
I'm burning inside, but I'm used to it, so maybe that's why it looks fine.
All right, thanks everyone for watching. Tune into Euphoria, YouTube, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud. Check it out. We're back next week with more content and potentially more spicy bets. I'm liking it.
Oh, my skin is so weird right now.
He's weak.
You get it. It's actually not as spicy as I thought, but it was really spicy.
Yo, dude, these are insane. No, what happened to our spicy noodles? Oh, there it is. Oh, oh shit. You are.
Well, there we go. You look fine now.
Yes, it took me a week.
Also, fun fact, you know, you only have a limited number of beep sounds you have to use for an amount of broadcasts. I think we used them all up. Tell us about the aftermath.
Because you don't look good right here.
Yeah,
you don't look good.
Just when we finished, it was such a weird feeling. Like my skin was just like, it was like vibrating almost. My lips were all kind of weird. And the following day, I had a very unpleasant thing happening to me.
Okay.
At a certain place in my house that I can't really disclose.
Yeah, let's not go into all of that.
But the day after that, I was fine.
All right,
So.
who's on Euphoria this week?
We have Reckless this week.
I see banking immediately on the return.
The moment he returned, we were like, we need Reckless. There you go,
Get him.
request him, please.
Yeah.
He said yes, luckily, and we get to chat a lot about himself, the last couple of weeks for him as well, and everything that's happened around Fnatic without Reckless and now with Reckless as well.
Fantastic. That'll come out next Wednesday. SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. But it's about time, I think, we focus in on the EULCS at this moment. Yesterday, we had a lot of great moments to Fish Show. Why don't you break them down for us?
I mean, we just talked about Reckless, and he's also going to be the first guy I'm going to talk about here when it comes to the great moments of yesterday, because Reckless did return for Fnatic. He got to play Israel in his first game back on stage, and while it wasn't really all about him, he did show us a great late game team fight, and it was in general just good to see Reckless play, and good to see Fnatic pick an AD carry for once, doing what everyone else is suddenly doing now with Reckless back in the lineup. He's sadly not playing today for these guys, but I'm sure he will return later in the split. Second thing, though, I want to highlight once we just watch Reckless kill everyone is another team that killed Vitality, and that was Schalke. And this made me so happy, one, because I won my prediction over Vedius, but also because Schalke is living up to the hype, and also Mr. Nukeduck in the mid lane. That hype train is definitely taking off right now. More and more people are trying to get tickets because this team is actually playing really well. Smart macro, ignore the 50-50 Baron at this point here. They did get it in the end. They actually played a very good game overall, and they deserve to beat Vitality. And now they're fighting for first place, which is a big surprise if you look at the entire year for Schalke. Last thing, Akali. We talked about this in Reddit check yesterday. We said this champion feels very, very strong in solo queue, but we need to see pro players use it first. We got to see the 3 best mid laners in Europe in Perks, Caps, and Nukeduck all play Akali. All of them actually got fairly fed. Most of them were able to carry the game, and I think it's safe to say Akali will be one of the very contested picks here in the EULCS. She is definitely a little bit too strong at the moment. I think that's fair to say, and all our mid laners, I think they want to show what they can do on this assassin.
Well, what was interesting is that we didn't see it in the first 2 games of the day, and then our strongest, I would say strongest mids in the league, Nukeduck, Perks, and Caps, all played it and all won with it. So is it overpowered, Ender?
I'm thinking yes after watching it. The laning phase looks like hot garbage, levels 1 through 5, but once you hit level 6, you can just solo kill anyone.
That's the thing.
Anyone. Argument because
lane phase 1 to 5 is so short in the mid lane anyway. Playtester question here. Akali W. What goes into the mind of a designer and then also a playtester when you see that kind of ability that is so new to the game where no one can spot her and like the whole idea around it?
Well, specifically with that W, it's trying a little bit to break some things in League of Legends, like not actually revealing you underneath a turret. That was one of the ideas behind it. And yes, that's a very powerful tool, and I think the rest of the kit now needs to be balanced around that. But it was a bold move.
Let's see if it pays off. Vedius also has an Akali breakdown in just a little bit. But first, let's focusing on the standings and the implications for playoffs since the results yesterday. Now, Fnatic, Misfits, G2, and Schalke are all officially locked in that top 6. Unicorns of Love and H2K cannot make it. And then in terms of probability, it looks very likely that Team Vitality and Splice will make it to playoffs. It will truly need a miracle from Rocket and Giants and need them to win every remaining game to even have a chance of qualifying. But it looks like the picture is getting pretty much set.
Yeah, even for Giants and Rocket, it's not entirely in their control anymore. They're going to need Splice to drop a couple of games. And if Splice can sort of take this 8-15 patch, scale up a little bit later, get into the late game, they should be looking at that 6th spot in playoffs.
Well, with those 4 teams locked in playoffs, we wanted to take a look at G2, Schalke, Fnatic, and Misfits and their road to the finals in Madrid, possibly starting with the 4-time EU LCS champions, G2 Esports. Now, G2's struggles after Rift Rivals are not a mystery, or they are kind of a mystery. They've been very inconsistent. 4-5 after returning from Rift Rivals, where they were 6-0 before going to Rift Rivals. So what does that tell us? Obviously that they're inconsistent, but why are they inconsistent, guys?
Sure, I think that it really boils down to their draft, in my eyes, because they usually go a little bit greedier, get counter picks for Wonder and Perks, and rely so much on their solo laners getting an early advantage, and then moving into a more difficult to execute 1-3-1 style of composition. And now that the overall level of the league has really risen up to sort of match G2, it's been much harder for them to get those advantages in those lanes.
Definitely have some late game things to work on. I also want to highlight an early game part, which is Jankos specifically. Formerly, probably the best early game jungler we had in Europe. This split half the games we're impressed. He's 10-0. We're like, wow, Jankos first blood king is awesome. And then the other half, he doesn't really know where to be on the map. He picks off a wrong gank, he dies, he gets caught out, whatever it is, and then suddenly he falls behind. So when you are a team that relies a lot on trying to have a jungler that can get your laners ahead, and this guy then is inconsistent, you obviously get these games where it's really hard to predict how exactly they're going to play.
And that's why the last 3 games they have remaining, we do want to see them be consistent. Their first opponents today are Misfits, and Misfits have kind of a similar story. They went undefeated in the first half of the split, but now has had a mid-season dip. They also have to improve before playoffs. I think that's safe to say. They are still in the top of those rankings, but I think if you put your stock in Misfits going to playoffs like this, that doesn't instill me with a lot of confidence. What are the main things they need to work on?
I think they need to get back to the basics. I want to see Mickey X back in this roster because I still think that bottom lane is so powerful, and then continue to play around those guys in the bot lane. In past weeks, we've seen Maxlor trying to put more focus top lane, mid lane. It hasn't been that same Misfits that we're used to seeing, and I think if they can get back to that, back on that form, they should be a major contender in playoffs.
Because when they did win all the games, when they were 9-0, it was often through very strong early games.
Yeah.
You know, they had especially a bot lane that could win. Maxwell would then play with Mickey around that side and kind of take over the rest of the map for Misfits, and they would just kind of run over teams. But games are a little bit slower now. Misfits also not just drafting for early game anymore. They've tried to go a little bit more late game, and that's why they put in Jesses, because they feel like the shot calling is lacking at that part in the game.
Yeah, but yesterday...
Exactly. Like, to me, it feels like instead of saying we want to go all in on our strength, which is, you know, early game, they're saying we will try and make our weakness better, which is the late game. And we saw yesterday with Jesses that it wasn't really the case. No. They needed a Baron steal against H2K, the bottom team in the league. So they still need time. But honestly, nothing happened for this team in a couple of weeks. Putting in Jesses does make sense in theory to change something.
They're also already locked into playoffs, so that's pretty good. But they're still trying to get that bye, place 1 and 2, make you skip the quarterfinals, and they are up in our match of the week later today. G2 versus Misfits. Quick thoughts on that matchup. 2 struggling teams looking to show us that they are better than what they've led on.
And they are struggling, but they're still very much in the conversation for getting that bye in playoffs. It's just 1 game separating these 2 teams, so regardless, it is going to be a very close match, and I think it comes down to which can carry a little bit harder, Misfits bot lane or the solo lanes of G2.
True.
It is 2 teams with high highs and currently low lows. If they're both hitting the highs, we get an absolutely insane game. Ton of action early on, some great individual players trying to carry as well. Like, that's what I'm hoping for, because we know they can do it. They just don't consistently do it right now. But I'm hoping for high highs and a G2 win.
We will see. We have the POV stream on Perks. We will see how that plays out. You will be able to follow that at the beginning of the game at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Now, the 2 final teams we need to talk about that are already locked into playoffs have a much more positive story.
Oh, it's all great.
So good.
Starting with Fnatic. Now, Fnatic as an organization has won 6 EU LCS titles, and they are looking solid so far, on course for 7. That's starting to sound absolutely crazy, but honestly, Reckless came back yesterday, they won again, and they still put all their resources in caps.
Yeah, I think you absolutely still put them in caps, especially when he's playing something like the Akali. He's going to take over games, but what I'm most excited about for Fnatic is them actually getting into playoffs and then seeing them in a best-of-5, because now they're trying out this 6-man roster. Do you put in Reckless? Do you put in Bwipo? How do you sort of change things up based on your opponents? That's really where I think Fnatic are going to shine now that they're putting more playing time into Reckless.
And it's almost a little bit unfair now that they can use Reckless again, so they have 6 players that are all, you know, very strong players here in Europe, and it makes it so hard for another team to prepare against them, especially in a best-of-5, because you're not 100% sure who's playing and what they're going to play. I just love the fact that Reckless stepped in and said, you know what, I don't need to carry. I'm going to be in a supportive style. It was the Ezreal for him. They used the Hylissang Pyke that they first picked to go mid lane. So they didn't change too many things by putting him back in the lineup, and that's a good sign for Fnatic.
That worked well. We'll be tracking that in best-of-5s. I can actually not wait for that. And another team that I can't wait to see in best-of-5s is Schalke 04. They are 8-1 in their last 9 games. Now, I'm just going to put it out there. Should they be thinking about that #1 spot?
Oh, yeah.
Can they do that?
Absolutely. With the form this team has had in the second half of the split, while regular season may be a little bit out of their control if Fnatic and Misfits continue to win, this team should be going to Madrid by all accounts. They should get into playoffs. The rest of their schedule in the regular season shouldn't be much of an issue for them. They need to take that down and then move on and go to the finals.
Dangerous, that much trust.
I mean, I feel like we've said that for a few weeks now. We're like, okay, now we put the faith in them. They're going to fail, but they just keep winning. So they are constantly just show they are actually one of the top teams. I'm also wearing the blue and white today for this specific reason, just to celebrate Schalke. And it's also the only suit I had available. But still, it fits with the Schalke story now. I just like the fact that more players are stepping up. Like, it's not just Nuclear. I know that's kind of what, you know, the whole storyline, or
I mean, that's literally all you say.
I don't know who says it, but someone does. You know, you look at Chachi Poppy, that's absolutely insane. You look at Upset in the bottom lane. We had him on PGL as well, and he did a great job there talking about his role in the team. So I like the fact that it is now multiple lanes playing well, because that's what Schalke needs.
Yeah, they were crazy yesterday, and Nukeduck picked that Akali. We saw it 3 times altogether, so we're going to learn a bit more about the champion together with Vedius.
Thank you very much, Shox. Yes, today I want to take some time to talk about the reworked Akali. I will highlight some of her strengths and weaknesses, run you through how the pros are currently playing her, and see if she'll be a mainstay in pro play or not. Starting off, we're going to look at some of her weaknesses. Ender talked a little bit about it earlier. She is a melee, short-range champion that can often be harassed during the early levels in the laning phase. You can see on my screen right now, LeBlanc into Akali is an often matchup that she can struggle in. But fortunately, she does have the Shroud to buy a little bit of time. She can get that extra bit of safety, get a bit of harass down on some farm, but the moment it's gone, it is a very long cooldown early levels, which means you can then look to get harassed again. That's pretty much all of her weaknesses out of the way. Let's get on to the strengths. Moving on to things like tower diving, for example. One of the big advantages of Shroud is it cannot be targeted by towers. Group up with your mates, go underneath the tower, utilize the damage that you get when you hit that level 6, and kills come like a breeze in the wind. On top of that, team fighting is another situation where she can really shine. Again, it's thanks to that use of the Shroud. Because she's so difficult to lock down, and because of how much mobility she has, when a large group of enemies try to kill her, she has so much opportunity to reposition, move around the map, and basically set up for those backline kills. You can see in this situation here, she's in a 2 versus 3. She ends up losing her jungler, but thanks to the Shroud, she can quickly reposition, get onto the low health targets, and utilize all that mobility and damage to quickly turn a situation around in her favor. So now you have an idea of some of her strengths and weaknesses. Let's look at how the pros are actually building her. Starting off with her rune page, you can see primarily onto the electrocute tree. They want that extra bit of damage. And also, you need to pick up this rune down in the bottom lane, the Ultimate Hunter, to reduce that cooldown on the ultimate because it is quite long at early levels. Also, the defensive tree on the right-hand side, a bit of bone plating, bit of Chrysalis because she is that melee assassin. In terms of itemization, you'll see a lot of Hextech Gunblade, and on top of that, a Zhonya's Hourglass for a bit of safety and burst damage in the early game, rounded out usually with a lot more damage. Things like Morellonomicon, Void Staff, or Deathcap, depending on the situation. Skill order might surprise some of you, as first you'll max the Q as it's your primary wave clear and damage tool, but the W is maxed second for 4 main reasons. It gives you increased energy regeneration, it also increases the Shroud duration, you also get bonus movement speed, and the cooldown is reduced. So it's definitely an ability that you want to max second. Now we saw 3 Akali games yesterday, with Caps perfectly showcasing her kit and a key team fight late into the game. Let's have a look at that and how well he plays it. First off, you're going to notice that he's in a bit of a sticky situation. He takes a lot of damage. Oh, he's just going to pop the Shroud. He's safe. He can reposition. He can look for an opportunity to dive into the fight. He does miss a skill shot, so he has to wait a little while longer, but the moment his team engages, he dives onto the backline. There's that Zhonya's Hourglass we were talking a little bit about earlier. Provides you a little bit more time, and then again, all this mobility to reposition, get out of harm's way. Then the moment he sees another opportunity to go back in, he does it. Shroud comes back up again, and this just highlights how valuable she can be in these team fights. Repositioning, hard to lock down, huge amounts of damage. This makes her so valuable if she can get through that rough laning phase. Now, that was my Akali breakdown, but she's not the only OP mid laner on the Rift. It's time once again for the Nocturne mid lane guide! Let's do it!
We went over this.
Come on!
No, sorry. We're almost out of time, Vedius. I swear you'll get your chance. I'll swear. I swear.
He's also on a losing streak on the champion.
Yeah, I also heard that you dropped 2 divisions playing Nocturne mid.
I'm Diamond 4 on Nocturne mid. I'm the greatest.
Going up because you're playing duos.
It is true.
I got that information somewhere. All right, we are running a bit low on time. 5 minutes before that clash between Vitality and H2K. So let's catch up on our predictions. Officio and Vedius, they are tied for Superior Analyst, and things they got a little out of control when they discussed Schalke versus Vitality yesterday.
And you know what's going to happen when Schalke gets ahead? You know what? It is, after all, the year of the duck.
It's not the year of the duck. It's the year of the dog.
Think about the duck.
I love you, dog.
Think about the duck, please, please, please,
so
please,
cute.
please,
Look,
please.
it's the Vitality doggo. He's so... Look how excited he
Don't
is.
show the vote.
Schalke 04 gets the vote for the crowd. The Fisher wins the argument and thus maybe has the right prediction. I'm so sorry, Verius. You presented your arguments well and good enough.
You're going to be wrong, Twitch chat.
You sucked, Veri.
What we learned is that we want a constant Vitality doggo cam.
We definitely want that one, but we also want Verius to keep being wrong in his predictions, because I was right yesterday. And you also had Vitality, by the way.
Yeah.
You also had Vitality.
I did.
Oh.
But now I'm jumping off the hype train, except in this first game. However, I see that you have a Unicorns of Love prediction for the Rocket game, and Verius
Oh,
has
I thought it was a
Rocket
cat.
prediction.
It's a horse.
Yeah, see, this is really sad, too, because he just tied Vedius, and now he's going to throw that
Throw
away.
it all
He's going
away.
to fall underneath him again.
Rocket will draft for late game and lose in the late game to Unicorns of Love. Bam.
Bam. And for the rest, it looks like one of those straightforward days, a Vitality claim over H2K. I think, unfortunately, that is the way things will go.
Yet I'm not 100% sure we're going to be right, because like the Misfits G2 game is definitely a 50-50, and we're all for some reason on G2 here.
Well, it's due to yesterday. I think G2 just had
That's
a
fair.
slightly better performance.
Could hurt us. Schalke Giants, while Schalke are definitely looking great, overconfidence is a thing, and Giants in the last couple of weeks have not looked bad. I don't know. I'm smelling potential upsets somewhere.
Potential upsets, and maybe it is in our first game of the day, H2K versus Vitality. For H2K, it is a bit tough to tell their story since they are out of playoffs and they've not really made that much happen during the split, but their last couple of games have looked surprisingly positive.
And I think it ties in to around the time they brought Cajal into the lineup. The team has been very outspoken about how he's really helped them as another voice and a playmaker in the early game. Because before Cajal, this was a team that sort of sat around for 20 minutes and hoped something good would happen. It usually didn't. Now, with Cajal on the roster, they're willing to make these proactive plays in the early game.
That, and also I feel like a lot of the players, now that they don't play for anything, a lot less pressure on them, and they can kind of go a little bit crazy. They can try and really go all the way to the edge, and we see that from, you know, Smitty J up in the top lane. We saw it from Selfie with the Fish yesterday. Like, I actually think this H2K team now, despite the record, are playing much better compared to the start of the split, and it's actually worth watching their games.
I agree. Sheriff is also back in the lineup today, and they are king of spoilers now. They can spoil people's chances to lock playoffs or get up in the standings if where they want to get that bye. So that is their role now, and that's exactly what they could do against Vitality today. Now, Vitality has suffered their first loss with Kikis on the lineup. Yesterday, they went 4-0, and then yesterday they didn't manage to win versus Schalke. TLDR of what went wrong, guys?
I mean, it comes down to the early game because we often praised Kikis when he came into the league about how proactive he was about invading the enemy jungle and looking for these early game ganks. But yesterday, Schalke just shut him down at every turn. The deep vision wasn't there to set up these types of plays. The rest of the team wasn't quite ready to react. And when that happens, Kikis is just going in without the support he needs and ends up going really poorly for them.
Yeah, he also tweeted after saying, you know, no one is as mad as himself about this game here, because not only did he struggle without the Trundle pick specifically that was banned by Schalke, he had that moment where he could have stolen a Baron. It was just him in the pit. Amazing was already dead, and then he misses the smite on it. So there were some key moments where Kikis could have been the big hero again for this team, but I think we got to see a different player compared to the last 2 weeks, which definitely hurt Vitality because they still rely so much on winning early game. Once they fall behind, they really struggle.
And they also just always go mid. So is the... No, I'm not going to say issues. It's only one loss. But what is the points of improvement here? Is it Kikis that should look to change his style? Or is it Vitality as a team that should look to play the mid-game differently?
I mean, I love Kikis' style. I just need the rest of the team to be on the same page. I think he works very well with Jizuke in the mid lane at the moment, but Cabochard in that play we saw earlier wasn't quite on that same page and having the same mindset. So if they shore that up, they should be looking a lot better.
Expand the late game playbook a little bit. Needs to be more than the one page saying, let's go 5-man mid and try and fight here. Yesterday, Schalke got so many extra waves top lane by Nukdog split pushing, and no one ever caught that wave. Like, you got to be able to play on all 3 lanes if you want to maximize your input, or you got to be the best team fighters. They're not at the moment. They got to work a bit in the late game. I like the early game.
We got to see it. Playoffs are only 3 games away for them, and if they want to get that bye, then they get an extra week to prepare for the semifinals because they would skip quarterfinals. So that is definitely something you want to work towards as a team. I'm going to do my best to just kick it off to the casters exactly at the 1 second mark. So
I'm going to say something here. I look at this matchup with the Vitality H2K, and based on how H2K have been pretty close when it comes to beating like Misfits yesterday, I feel like I'm kind of feeling a small upset here.
And no one wants to lose to H2K.
No one wants to lose
one.
to H2K. You're fighting for first place if you're Vitality. They should be the better team, but H2K can do it.
H2K can do it. Let's see if they can. Over to you guys.